I have always been the favourite among my siblings. As the baby of the family and the only boy, I got doted on a little extra. This extra doting increased when I became interested in dance and discovered a talent for it. This makes sense in my mind. My schedule required more time and money devoted to it since I now had to be taken to classes and showcases, needed the proper attire, etc. There were a few years of tension between my sisters and me, especially during our teen years, where it seemed like they blamed me for what was going on or expected me to apologize for our parents' choices, something I adamantly refused to do. Tension seemed to ease some when we went our separate ways. My sisters stuck around in our hometown to get jobs while I moved to a city about an hour from college. I met my now husband there, and despite what my parents tried to talk us into, we got married in a tiny ceremony at the local courthouse where only immediate family was present. We had a party with our close friends and family later to celebrate, but the ceremony itself was just like we wanted, a small part of an intimate and peaceful day focused on my partner and me. My oldest sister got engaged a couple of months ago, and my parents jumped at the chance to start planning an over-the-top wedding. I've been around for some of it, and a lot of what is being offered to the new happy couple was suggested to my husband and me when they were trying to convince us to have a big wedding. This didn't bother me at all. I was happy my sister was getting what seemed like the wedding of her dreams. Unfortunately, it seems like she's still holding a grudge over what happened when we were kids, and has made multiple jokes about how she's the favourite now and that this is payback for all the things she missed out on when I was being chauffeured to dance practice. I took the first few in stride, but it's getting tiring now that it's been repeated so many times. I recently told her the jokes were getting old, but that didn't stop her. I finally had enough last night, and after a few drinks at a little weekend family get-together, I told her that her wedding was essentially a knockoff of mine and that I doubted our parents would be putting this much effort in had I gone through with the extravagant plans they wanted me to a few years ago. She left the room in tears, and I've gotten mixed reactions from family over what I said. Am I the idiot? Yes, you are the idiot, and it sounds like you've been the idiot their entire lives. First, you happily soaked up your parents' attention, knowing you were the favourite and didn't even care that they didn't share your golden child status. Then, the second the attention was off of you, you decide to try to attack as low as you can instead of being happy that your siblings got to experience some of the rarefied air you've been in your entire life. Your sibling taunts you because you are entitled and spoiled and not very likeable as a result. You taunted her because you're mean and resent not being the centre of attention. I can't imagine weaponizing the poor decisions of my parents against a sibling that they hurt. Oh, but he, the person who benefited from the parents' favoritism, has totally moved on from it. Why can't his sisters do the same? I love how he didn't think we'd get that the sisters got jobs while he went to college thing was a blaring siren that only he got a college fund, while sisters were stuck at home having to work right after high school, unable to further their education. Or how the money went into dancing clothes, classes and competitions. At this point, I even wondered if there was enough money for his sisters to get birthday or Christmas presents. OP, you're so full of yourself that you have to claim the wedding you didn't have as your own. You sound terribly spoiled. You've gotten so used to thinking the world revolves around you that when for once it didn't, you couldn't handle it. Your parents are the idiots as well, by the way. I disagree with it being a few light-hearted jabs from sister. In my experience, that's never been the case in this sort of situation. Most of the time, it's a passive-aggressive expression of outright hostility with the slightest of veneers of civility. It's often tough to deal with because it's so difficult to tell them to knock off their crap without it playing right into their game. OP's post reeked of him being an idiot, but I also think everyone is underplaying what the sister was doing. Everyone's the idiot here. When your sister kept trying to goad you, the adult thing to do was to ignore it, not goad her back. You're not children anymore, and you did have an advantage over her growing up. My mom is currently visiting us. This is the first time since we moved 3 years ago. She's not one of those intrusive mothers-in-law, so sometimes I just wish my wife would let the little things slide. My mom and my wife had some issues years ago, but my mom has been fine during this visit. The only issue is she isn't eating, and I mean literally isn't eating anything. She's clearly going out and buying food because she doesn't seem sick or lethargic at all, but since getting to our house, the only thing I've seen her eat is one chocolate peanut butter cup. She sits with us while we eat, but always says she isn't hungry, doesn't feel well, though she seems fine. Later in the evening, she asked to use my car to get coffee, so I'm sure she's going out, getting what she wants, and binge eating enough to get through the next day. Personally, I don't care. She's a good guest, it's nice for me to see her, and she isn't being careless with my car, so no problem. My wife, however, is furious. She's currently not speaking to my mom due to this. She says I need to confront her, or she will. I flat out refused, as I said she was being polite about it, and who are we to force her to eat? My wife called me spineless and said she was going to handle it. She called her mom and sister to get their opinion and was ready for a confrontation. I broke down this morning and begged her to just let it go. She accused me of wanting her just to shut up and endure for my sake and is now mad at me. She says she has to do it as I'm a mama's boy. My mom is flying home tomorrow, and I just don't see any reason to make this an issue. Am I the idiot? Everyone's the idiot here. Your mom is passive-aggressive with her blatant refusal to eat anything in your home. This is extremely rude, and in some cultures a direct insult. Your wife's reaction is over the top, and for calling you spineless. Calling your husband names is idiot territory. Finally, your behavior is understandably infuriating to your wife, and you are enabling your mother's rude behavior. The three of you must act like adults and discuss this issue openly. So it is rude to decline food, but not to try to guilt and nag someone into eating your food. If the mother doesn't want to eat the wife's cooking for whatever reason, then that is her right. People who demand their guests to eat and throw a hissy fit when they don't isn't half as polite as they think they are, and in that aspect, they can shove their culture. I don't understand the mom either. I don't want to get to know you, I'm annoyed you keep trying to get to know me, you're spending too much time over here, but also, how dare you guys spend more time with your in-laws than with me? Why can't mother-in-law stay in a hotel if she's so uncomfortable around her son's family that she can't eat around them, and feels the wife remains in her own home too much and expects too much interaction? This is literally how every evil mother-in-law story starts, and yet OP is like, my mom is a great mother-in-law. OP is clueless about how his mom really is, and he's also very adept at rationalizing her behavior in her favor, so she's trained him very well. I hope he really listens to his wife over the next few days, if she's even talking to him by then. I, female 25, married my husband 25 in August. We kept it small and simple and didn't want too many guests due to budget, so we only invited close family members and friends. My older sister, Dawn, 38, has 10 children. My parents and the rest of my family aren't religious, but Dawn and her husband are very hardcore Christians and believe that having many children is God's will. Inviting all of my nieces and nephews would be quite expensive. My wedding isn't child-free, but my husband and I decided it would be fairest if we only invited Dawn's 3 eldest kids. I talked to Dawn about it and explained our reasoning, but she was offended and said I was picking favourites. I told her I was sorry, but 10 kids was a considerable cost on our wedding budget and that we tried to be as fair as possible. Dawn accused me of being a bridezilla and thinking I was too good for her and her family. So I told Dawn that if she doesn't like it, she doesn't have to come, but that she's my sister and I really want her at the wedding. Dawn, her husband, and 3 elders did come to the wedding, but with other family members bringing small children, everyone was asking her why not all of their kids were there. After the wedding, Dawn has been very off around me lately. She told me she understands how I feel about her babies and said that I'm a bad sister and a terrible aunt and has accused me of not respecting her religion and lifestyle. My parents and other siblings have been making comments like, "Don't get too excited for XYZ. OP said only 3 people can come because there are too many of us." The comments have been getting to me a bit, and I wonder if I was the idiot. Edit, my husband and I paid for the wedding ourselves. Not the idiot, that's a family of 12. If your sister was so upset, she could have offered to contribute towards the costs. A consequence of having a load of kids is that people aren't going to want to cater to all of them at events because it is a high cost. And OP said the wedding was only about 40 people anyway. Adding a family of 12 to that is insane. That's a fourth of your guest list. And even if you found a decent venue where kids' meals are maybe $50 a plate, that's still $600 if you're going low budget. That's huge in your food costs. Damn, they have enough kids for a sports team. It is your wedding, but you also have to expect consequences for your actions. Your sister's reaction isn't completely unreasonable and should have been expected, as well as her behavior after the wedding. Not saying it's right or wrong, but it should have been expected. In her eyes, you insulted her family and her faith. Gently, you are the idiot. You really should have set an age limit to avoid all this drama. It must have been so awkward for everyone to keep asking your sister, "Where are your other kids? Why did you only bring 3 of your kids?" You did single your sister out, and stuff like this will happen. So I, 25 female, work in a pretty big office in a big city. The floor I work on is specifically for a branch of the company, so there are only a dozen people on that floor. I bring my lunch every day because I usually don't have time to get up and get food for myself. One of my favourite foods is strawberries, and I always eat them. About a week ago, a woman who I'll call Jane, 47, started working in the room about 7 doors down from me. A couple of days ago, I pulled out my lunch and started munching on my strawberries while trying to type an email. Jane knocks on my door and asks me what I'm doing. She says this in a very high-pitched, angry tone, so I'm taken aback, and all I can murmur out is a small, "What?" before she starts yelling at me. She goes on about how I should know she's allergic and that even smelling strawberries can cause her a severe reaction. I cough on my strawberry and rush to put it back in its container, and she gets even angrier that I didn't already know. I apologise and put my food back in my lunchbox, then put it in my desk drawer. The next day I went to my supervisor, I'll call Derek, to talk about the situation and ask if we could maybe put up a sign at the entrance of our office floor that tells us what allergies our co-workers had. That way we can avoid mistakes that happened the day before. He looks at me confused and asks what I'm talking about. I explained what had happened the day before, and he sighed and explained to me that Jane had no proven documentation about her allergy and didn't put any allergies on the employee information sheet when she was employed. I sigh with relief and ask if it's okay for me to bring my strawberries the next day, and he says it's perfectly fine. So the next day I brought my strawberries, and Jane goes off on me as I open my lunch and claims I'm trying to kill her. She says this loud enough that all my other co-workers gather around my door and see what's going on. Jane storms out, and about half of my co-workers tell me I'm an idiot for doing that to her and walk out with her. The other half sits there and tells me it's fine and that she did the same thing to them but with different foods. Examples: carrots, beans, avocado, etc. I'm getting a lot of angry emails calling me an idiot and I feel horrible, but some of my co-workers are saying I did nothing wrong. Am I the idiot? Your boss cleared you and stated she didn't write them down or provide documentation. If she would die from the smell, she'd be dead already upon entering your office. Not the idiot. Enjoy your fruits. Next time she comes in, tell her to take it up with the supervisor and HR. You inquired and were cleared to eat them at the office. She smells strawberries from 7 doors down and then proceeds to walk closer to the smell that could kill her to tell you the smell could kill her. She's a moron, but it seems like she's lying based on all the other food weirdness. If she's done this to other co-workers about other foods, I'm willing to bet she either just doesn't like the smell or she likes the drama and attention. There's no allergy involved. Anytime you need an accommodation at work for your health, you must provide documentation. Ask your supervisor if they can send out an email to everyone saying that any allergies must be registered with the workplace if accommodations are needed. Hopefully that will stop the emails and hate. Also, let them know that this person shouted at you again for just eating your lunch. My husband and I had children before our marriage. He has 3 and I have 2. All kids are over 30. We've known each other for 6 years. After my son left home, I rented the house and bought a smaller one with 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. One room is my office and another a normal room. My husband and I have lived together in my house for 2 years, and we split the bills in half. But because my husband lost his old job and isn't earning as much in the new one, the bills are 3/4 for me. Our house is not a good place to receive visitors, especially for a long time because they have to stay on a mattress in the living room. I don't let them sleep in the office because that is my place of work. Currently, almost 80% of my appointments are on video call. I'm a psychologist, so I need a reserved place, and there are a lot of patient documents, so no visits there. One of my husband's children, Logan, 32 male, is visiting our country, 5 years abroad, and after staying at his mother's house, he came to see my husband. We invited him to stay for a few days. My husband is over the moon with Logan's presence, and although I say our house is not the best place for long visits, he insisted that Logan stays for another 2 weeks. The first week after that went fine. But Friday, my husband came to talk to me, suggesting that in these last days that Logan stays here, he stay in the office, put things against the wall because he wants to accommodate his son better, and it's sad to see him not having privacy even to sleep. I remembered my warning about not being the best place for this, and that I'm not giving up my office because I work there. He started to say that a visitor's comfort should come first, and that I could use our room as a place of work, and he could leave the room for that. It would only be a few days like this. 10 days. I was annoyed and said, look, if my job is important to keep the house bills paid, then work comes first. It's a few days, but for 8 days I have patients all morning and afternoon. You knew the house wasn't the best place for this and insisted, so it's on you. But my office is essential to my work. He began to say that I was rubbing his face and that I not only support the house but him as my partner, and I should be committed to helping my stepson get comfort. He's mad at me for keeping my answer, and honestly, I've never noticed anything from Logan. I just really feel that it wouldn't be an option if the office were his place of work. Am I the idiot? The other 20% I work in another city for a clinic with the patients. Not the idiot. So you pay 75% of the bills and are now expected to convert your office into a bedroom for one of his kids? Tell him to rent somewhere with his son if he wants to be around him that much. I don't know Logan's financial situation, but if he gets in that room, he may not leave it. Every point you laid out is valid. You need to work, you need privacy. You could literally be violating HIPAA if you allow him access to the files. Your husband knew the room situation before his son came to visit. Your work is not only done from home, but is highly confidential. You need a separate, private room to work out of. Even if your job wasn't what was keeping a roof over your head, a visitor's comfort is not more important than your literal job. If you don't have a lock on that door, I get one. I wouldn't be surprised if you come back to find he'd move things around anyway, with how he keeps going on about it. Allowing people into your office is just asking for a data breach. If he doesn't understand by now how important that space is to your work, he never will.